All right, I am here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk a little bit about Bruce Ohr's testimony that was released by Doug Collins. And it's very interesting to see in the testimony that was released, there's a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of contradictions with what Bruce Ohr says and what Rosenstein and Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS testified. Walk us through these inconsistencies and walk us through the relevance of Representative Collins releasing this to the public, because I believe, and I know that you also look at it as shedding a lot of light and connecting some more dots as to what the FBI and the DOJ were up to, where they were targeting. I don't know if that's too harsh a word. You can let me know if that's harsh a word. Targeting the Trump campaign.
Right. I'm going to make a number of observations before I go into the detail of this. Firstly, where there is a difference in testimony, where there is an inconsistency between what Bruce Ohr says on the one hand and what Glenn Simpson says on the other, I prefer Bruce Ohr. I think he is a far more reliable witness than Glenn Simpson. That is one. Secondly, you talk about a targeting of the Trump campaign. I think that is entirely the correct word. There clearly was an agenda to target the Trump campaign. That is what the Steele dossier was all about. That is what the Russiagate investigation was all about. That is what this story, which is now confirmed to be true, about various officials within the Justice Department and the FBI thinking of invoking the part of the Constitution, the 25th Amendment, to remove Donald Trump as president for mental incapacity, and with Rosenstein carrying a wire on him to try and get him evidence from Trump to do that. That was what that was all about. So I have no doubt whatsoever that there was a campaign to target the Trump campaign and Donald Trump personally. And as I said, there are important inconsistencies between what Ohr says and what Glenn Simpson and Rosenstein say. Now, what are those inconsistencies? Firstly, Glenn Simpson has denied that he ever discussed Christopher Steele's information, this Christopher Steele being this MI6, ex-MI6 officer who put together the Steele dossier that made all those sensational allegations that the Russians had a tape of Donald Trump cavorting with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow, and that there was a collusion between Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians to steal the 2016 election, and that the Trump campaign was somehow involved in the hacking of the DNC and Podesta's computers by the Russians. That's what the Steele dossier says, and that's what Christopher Steele says. And Christopher Steele produced that dossier at Glenn Simpson's request, and Glenn Simpson did it ultimately at the request of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now, Glenn Simpson has denied that he had any contact with the Department of Justice. He has always said that all the contacts were between Christopher Steele and the Department of Justice. We now know from Bruce Ohr that Glenn Simpson was in direct contact with Bruce Ohr, who is a very senior official in the Department of Justice. We now also know that Bruce Ohr, who was used by the FBI as a kind of to set up a kind of back channel to Christopher Steele after Christopher Steele was formally sacked by the FBI as a witness because he was leaking information about his dossier to the newspapers during the 2016 election campaign and during the transition period. We now know that Bruce Ohr was in contact with Christopher Steele, setting up a back channel between the FBI and Christopher Steele, and that this continued, it seems, right up to October 2017. That is to say, well after the inauguration of Donald Trump, and it seems after Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel. So to my mind, these two things are both huge revelations, because they show that, contrary to what Glenn Simpson says, he was actively involved spreading this Russiagate hoax based on the Steele dossier with officials of the Department of Justice, including Bruce Ohr, and that there was this back channel between Christopher Steele and the FBI and the Department of Justice going through Bruce Ohr and through his wife, who works for Glenn Simpson in Fusion GPS, and that this continued right up until the autumn of 2017. In fact, as far as I can judge, until October 2017, after Robert Mueller was appointed. So this is, I think, very big information, because it shows the extent to which this whole situation, this whole Russiagate thing, was being manipulated behind the scenes by the Democrats, by Glenn Simpson, and the extent to which this was going on long after the so-called Russiagate investigation had been started.
All right, let's try to connect some dots, Alexander, and try to simplify it out, because we see a lot of the same names: Simpson, Steele, Ohr, Rosenstein. And I think we've now kind of gotten to, over the 2 years, we've kind of found now the key central players in what was going on in this targeting of Trump and the Trump campaign. So you have the DNC and Hillary Clinton paying Glenn Simpson for opposition research against Trump, Simpson to Steele. Steele, on the other side, is working with Ohr and the DOJ, while at the same time he's getting paid by the FBI and Comey. And on top of all of this resides one Rod Rosenstein. Is that a correct interpretation as to what's going on? And what does this say about these key players who are pulling the strings in this investigation?
Yes, I mean, it is exactly correct. That is exactly what happened. And I would add something else. We are looking at lots of pieces of the jigsaw, and we don't yet have all of them, but a picture is now starting to emerge.
What do you think is missing? What do you think is missing in your mind before you get into the picture?
I'm going to tell you, one other big revelation that has come out is at the same time that Christopher Steele was working for the Democrats and Hillary Clinton and Glenn Simpson, he was also working for a very big league Russian oligarch, Oleg Deripaska. Deripaska is the owner of Rusal, the big aluminium conglomerate, the big Russian aluminium conglomerate. And he's also someone who is known to have had big issues with Putin. I mean, the idea that he is close to Putin is wrong. The two men have had falling outs with each other. And on one occasion, Putin publicly humiliated Deripaska in front.
Right. For our users, that's a very, very popular video, a video that went viral where Putin has him come to sign the documents for the employees that were about to be laid off, and he asked for his pen back. It was very humiliating for someone like Deripaska to have that video go viral.
Absolutely.
So our users, our viewers can look it up and they can see that video.
Absolutely. And I should add that Deripaska is somebody with a very, very shall we say, colourful background. He clawed his way up to become a billionaire in the 1990s during a period in Russia which is called the Aluminium Wars, when he managed eventually to gain control of the aluminium industry in Russia. I mean, when I say aluminium wars, I mean, this was a case where hitmen were being used by all the various people who were involved. And he actually was at one point apparently hiding from hitmen who had come to kill him. So, we're talking about gangster capitalism at its most raw. Well, it turns out that this man, who, as I said, has a bad relationship with Putin, was also employing Christopher Steele. We don't quite know why, and we don't know what Deripaska's role in all of this was. But his name has repeatedly been mentioned in connection with the Steele dossier. And there have been rumors, which it is important to say Deripaska denies, that he had some hand in providing the information that supposedly went into this dossier. So what it looks to me is very great manipulation of the Justice Department and of the FBI by these various interested parties, by the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, and the DNC, and Glenn Simpson on the one hand, and on the other hand, by Deripaska, all working through Christopher Steele, pumping information to the FBI through Bruce Ohr, and at the same time getting through Bruce Ohr information from the FBI, which Bruce Ohr was himself passing on to Christopher Steele. And with Bruce Ohr's wife, who worked for Glenn Simpson in Fusion GPS, also apparently playing some sort of a role. So this looks like a deeply manipulated investigation in which one of the key players, one of the people who was most heavily involved in getting this Russiagate hoax going through this dossier which he was involved in compiling, that is Christopher Steele, apparently able to influence the course of that investigation through Bruce Ohr, and at the same time able to obtain information about it from Bruce Ohr. That's how it looks, and I think it is an extremely serious matter.
And Deripaska kind of connects a little bit of the Manafort dots as well, because you mentioned that he had a falling out with Manafort. He was closely connected to Manafort, and then got into a lot of legal disputes with Manafort. So that might explain a lot of what's happening to Paul Manafort as well.
Indeed. Now, this is where, unfortunately for our viewers, I suspect it's going to become very complicated because, of course, one of the things that we have to say about Paul Manafort is that as well as working for various people in Ukraine, at one point he also worked for Oleg Deripaska. This is this big league Russian oligarch who is an enemy, or at least is hostile to Putin. And it seems that Deripaska has some kind of grudge against Manafort because he feels that Manafort cheated him of quite a lot of money. Now, as we've discussed in earlier videos, Manafort plays a star role in Christopher Steele's dossier. Christopher Steele, we now know, was being employed by Deripaska. So it does not take a great stretch to see that one reason why Manafort might play such a huge role in Steele's dossier is because Christopher Steele is in contact and is working for someone, who is to say Deripaska, who has it in for for Paul Manafort in a really big way. So, as I said, many pieces of a jigsaw, they haven't all yet fully come together, but there is enough there now, enough pieces for us to know that there is an overall picture, which if somebody puts all these pieces together and solves the puzzle, we could probably find out exactly what was going on.
Oh my God. I mean, the coincidence, the connection between all these players is quite stunning. From Deripaska to Steele to Simpson to Ohr to Nellie Ohr. What is the missing piece, or what are the missing pieces, Alexander, for you? What would be the smoking gun if that in your mind would say, okay, now everything makes sense as to how all these guys work together to derail Donald Trump?
Well, I think that, first of all, for me, the really critical piece of information, the thing I really want to see, is that we know that a report was sent to President Obama, Barack Obama, who was then President of the United States, in August 2016. And that it seems, contained parts of the Steele dossier. I say that's never been confirmed, but it looks increasingly likely that was the case. That report apparently was sent by the CIA, but it seems that the CIA was sharing information at this time with the FBI. So I think that report that was sent to Barack Obama, and which played an absolutely key role in crystallizing these various investigations that were going on, I think that is probably, if I have to say it, that's probably the smoking gun. If we go back to the famous Watergate scandal of 1972, there was the really big question, what did the president know and when did he know it? The president in this case is Barack Obama. And I'd like to know personally what exactly he knew in August 2016.
Do you think that smoking gun has something to do with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton meeting on the tarmac in Arizona?
I don't know, but I think it's quite possible. I mean, as I said, it probably, the report won't directly refer to that. But if we go back to that meeting between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, that was supposed to be about the investigation of Hillary Clinton's misuse of a private server to pass State Department emails. But what has become extremely clear over the last year through the various parallel investigations that have been going on by the House Intelligence Committee when it was headed by Devin Nunes, by the Senate Intelligence Committee, and also by the Inspector General of the FBI, Mr. Horowitz. What we now know is that these two investigations, the Clinton email investigation and the Russiagate investigation, were being conducted by essentially the same people working towards the same agenda, which is to clear Hillary Clinton and to nail Donald Trump. Mm-hmm.
There it is, to clear Hillary Clinton and to nail Donald Trump. I think that says it all.
Exactly. Well, exactly. I mean, and it's important to stress this didn't stop after the election. Donald Trump won the election and the campaign against him intensified. And it got worse through the transition period, and then it got even worse beyond it.
Well, Alexander, Hillary Clinton hasn't stopped. The Clinton machine hasn't stopped targeting Donald Trump.
No.
And I think that's evident in the fact that you had the Cohen testimony. Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, is Clinton's lawyer. And you had Adam Schiff prepping Cohen for a good 10 hours before his testimony. So I don't think that the Clinton mafia has backed off of trying to derail Donald Trump one bit.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's quite clear now that in fact, on the contrary, it is intensifying. And I'm going to make a guess, by the way, that now we have a further understanding of why it's intensifying. Why we had the House Intelligence Committee under Ralph Nadler, the new Democrat House Intelligence Committee, issuing these 81 subpoenas. We talked about it the other day. And why there's all this talk of impeaching Donald Trump going underway. It's because we are getting more and more information about what was really going on, about the connections between the FBI and Christopher Steele, about Deripaska's role, about the things that Glenn Simpson has said, which have turned out not to be true, and about his contacts with the Department of Justice, which he had previously denied. All of this information is starting to get bigger and bigger, and more of it. We hear that Lindsey Graham is now, who's now heads the Senate Judiciary Committee, is now pressing for more information about the misuse of Christopher Steele's dossier to carry out a surveillance of Carter Page, this other big part of the scandal. And it seems to me that people in the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, all of these people must be becoming increasingly nervous that step by step we're getting closer to the truth and closer to them. So they're doubling down on their Russiagate conspiracy theory as the real scandal of the 2016 campaign, which is this campaign to nail Donald Trump, is coming increasingly into the open.
Yeah, they'll do everything in their power to make sure that people stay focused on the Russiagate part of things, the Russiagate hoax, as this stuff starts to get uncovered. The real truth starts to get uncovered.
Exactly. And of course, they've also got a new Attorney General, William Barr, who is not as vulnerable or insecure or conflicted as Jeff Sessions was, and who seems inclined to take a much stronger line with Mueller and with all of this than Jeff Sessions was when he was in charge of the Department of Justice. So they've got more reason to be worried than they've ever had before, and they're dealing with it by doubling down.
Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop. Pick up a t-shirt. Help support the Duran in the description box down below. You'll find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to the Duran. That really helps us out a lot. And you can also get a copy of this video on SoundCloud and iTunes in audio format, so follow us there. And go to theduran.com and see all the links that Alexander is reading every day. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you once again. Until next time, everybody, take care.